decided to do a real-world review from an owner's perspective of a 2017 Honda Civic Si sedan. We leased this car about 2 years ago, so we're 2/3 of our way through our lease, and I felt that people would probably want to know an owner's perspective because most of the reviews online are from people doing a quick introductory first-time view of the car.
It's technically a lessee's perspective.
Yes, we do not own this car, we are leasing this car. However, we are daily driving it for 3 years.
Yep.
When I was researching leasing this car, it was a very calculated decision. I consider us to be automotive enthusiasts, so we wanted to make sure that we were going to have a car that we can enjoy for 3 years. I mainly daily drive this car. My wife has her Subaru Outback Turbo that she drives, and I had a Project STI that was not reliable enough to really continue being a daily driver. So I decided to start researching a car to purchase or lease. Lease deals on Hondas came up, and I started looking into the SI and decided that it would be a good car to daily drive. Stop for a bus.
Don't run over the children.
So we wanted to do a quick video with 3 things that we like about leasing this car and 3 things that we each dislike about leasing this car. So we're currently on a trip back from Lake Placid where we were on vacation for the weekend, so we figured it'd be a good opportunity to discuss this. We're in the middle of no man's land in upstate New York. I don't actually know where we are right now. We're just following the map back home.
We're on 69 West.
Perfect. So the 3 things that I like about this car, the first thing is I really like the engine and the transmission. So this is the 2017, it's the 10th generation Honda Civic, and it is the first year that they put a turbocharged engine in the SI. All previous SIs were high revving naturally aspirated 4-cylinders. They were either 2 liters or 2.4 liters. This is a 1.5 liter turbo engine. It makes about the same amount of horsepower, 200, 205, somewhere in that range. Makes much more torque than the previous ones. It makes 192 or 3 pound-feet of torque, which makes it much more usable in the real world. You don't have to be revved up to 8,000 or 9,000 RPM to be making power. This engine will make power between 2,000 and 5,000 RPM, which when you're just puttering around town is way more usable than a high revving naturally aspirated engine. The shifter is also great. It's very engaged. It's not the tightest shifter I've ever driven, but it makes a great sound. You know which gear you're in whenever you're trying to be in a gear. It's very quick to shift, and it makes driving around and changing gears very enjoyable. The second thing that I like about this car is its handling. The SI's always been known to be a great handling car. This is no exception. It's very, very well balanced. Basically, corners are this car's party trick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime you want to pull out of a corner, because it has the limited slip differential, you can just feel the car pulling itself out of the corner when you time it right. And it's a great feeling. It makes it very fun to drive. And it's probably the main reason I chose this over like the Civic Sport Hatch or the other models available that were cheaper.
And it feels great to us because corners are a lot smoother and tighter than in our Subarus, which are all-wheel drive cars.
Correct. The last thing that I really enjoy about this car is it's very economical. Both the cost, I lease this for about $240 a month, also the gas mileage. So this gets about 36-ish miles to the gallon, and that is average whether I am beating on it on some back roads or casually driving it to work every day. I rarely see the miles per gallon dip below 35, so you can have fun, you can go flat out a lot of the time, and you don't have to worry about pouring tons and tons of gas into this like our all-wheel drive cars that we're used to.
Yeah, again, comparison to the Subarus, it blows them out of the water for sure.
So what do you think? What are your top 3 things?
Number one, I think this car is very easy to drive. Specifically, when I'm wearing high heels, it can be very difficult to drive the Outback because the clutch is a little bit stiffer, right? You need a little bit more movement in your foot in order to get it to disengage. So with the Civic, it's very easy to drive and the clutch is very soft. And if I'm wearing heels, I want to drive the Civic for the day.
That was one of the things that reviewers often brought up, and even magazines when they reviewed this car would say it has a very vague clutch, or the engagement point is hard to find, which, yes, I agree. When you're first driving the car, that is definitely something that I noticed as well. However, after 2 years of daily driving it, it just becomes natural. There's nothing annoying about it driving every day. It's very easy to heel-toe shift. And the engagement off the line is also very easy, so I don't think that is really an issue.
Yeah, no, I see it as a plus if I'm wearing a shoe that's a little bit movement inhibiting, which can be an issue driving a manual car especially. The second thing that I don't love about this car, or I do love, sorry.
Yeah, we're still on legs.
The second thing that I like about this car is I like the seats. They're bolstered really nicely. I like a seat that holds you in a little bit. Compared to my Outback, those seats are a little bit too wide for me, and I feel like I can kind of slide around in them, which
they're also leather.
I don't love. Yeah, they're also leather, right? But these seats they're not leather, they're cloth, but they're very comfortable. You do have heated seats, which is nice. I love that in general. The shape and size of the seat, I feel, is very comfortable. It just feels nice. We've been sitting in this car for the past 3 hours,
yeah.
And I'm perfectly comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. No seat fatigue whatsoever.
Right, no, it feels great. The third thing I like about this car, I'll have to agree with you on the handling. It takes corners like a champ. It's enjoyable to drive. It really is. I didn't know if I'd like the car from when we first started talking about leasing it, and then we leased it, and then I did grow to love it. I think I enjoy driving it. It's, like I said, it's just overall easy to drive. It's a comfortable, smooth ride, and it's an easy car to maneuver.
We did get the all-season tires on this. There is an available summer tire option, which I think this car needs.
Yeah.
The reason that I got all the all-seasons, or just kept with the all-seasons that came on the car, is I figured with the limited slip differential in the all-season tires, that would be the only thing this car needed to be able to get through snow in the wintertime. We live out in the country, and we have a steep driveway that goes up when you go out towards the road, and unfortunately that backfired, and the car was impossible to get in and out of the driveway in anything more than like 2 or 3 inches of snow. So I did ultimately get snow tires for this vehicle, and it actually transforms the handling in the winter. You have to disable traction control, which I will talk about in a moment. But other than that, the handling balance with the snow tires is still really spectacular in the snow in the winter time. So I would suggest if you live anywhere where there is snow and want to buy or lease one of these, just go ahead and get the summer tires and then purchase winter tires to go back and forth between, because I know while this car does handle really well, it would be much better if it actually had sticky summer tires on it.
I agree. Alright, what do you dislike about it?
Alright, so the 3 things that I dislike about the car, the number one, I'm going to go right to the traction control. So the car does have a factory traction control and stability control system, and I hate it completely. So first of all, you can't disable it unless you go through this like old school video game console Mortal Kombat style cheat code where you have to cycle between the traction control button and the e-brake and the brake in a specific sequence 4 times in order to get the traction control system to be completely disabled. I will demonstrate that now. Foot on the brake, e-brake off, stability on, foot off the brake, stability off, stability on, e-brake up, stability off, stability on, foot on the brake, stability off, stability on. One of the things, once you do get it disabled, is there is a yellow flashing traction control light in your face the entire time that you have it disabled. So the traction control button, when you press it once, it will disable stability control, but traction control will still be on. So anytime it's raining or anytime you drive the car aggressively, it will engage the traction control. And one of the main reasons I dislike it, besides the fact that you can't turn it off, is it's not predictable. It doesn't do the same thing 2 times in a row. So sometimes it'll let the tires spin a little bit and it won't cut power as badly. And then another time it'll just completely cut power and then it'll have to take a second or two before it starts allowing the car to make power again. So if it was more consistent, then I wouldn't have as big a problem with it. But the fact that you can't predict what it's going to do is really bothersome to me.
I agree. I've never gone through the exercise of turning off the traction control, despite Adam telling me that I should. Classic, right? So I think for that reason, I don't love driving it in the winter or in any conditions besides totally dry. But again, it's contrast to the Subarus, which are extremely capable cars in the snow. So I think part of what makes me not enjoy this car is the very intrusive traction control. It's kind of bothersome.
Very annoying.
Yeah.
I forget what my other 2 things were. So my second thing that I dislike about this car is the infotainment screen and some of the things that happen with it. When you first turn the car on, it'll give you a pop-up saying, don't be distracted by the screen and crash the car, and you have to actually press an OK button in order to clear that screen. It will auto-clear after 4 or 5 seconds, but it's way too long. So this locks you out of all of the radio and the climate controls except for the most basic climate control buttons.
Right, so if it's 90 degrees out or 0 degrees out and you want to get in the car and turn on either the AC or the heat immediately as a normal human being would, you can't. And that 4 seconds of either sweating to death or freezing your butt off is excruciating.
Yeah, so there's no physical fan button. You can change whether the fan is on or off. You can change the recirculation. You can activate the front defroster and the rear defroster, and you can change the temperature with physical buttons.
You can turn your seat heat on.
And you can turn your seat heat on. Everything else is through the touchscreen infotainment system, so that's super annoying. Newer Civics did get a physical fan speed button and I think a couple other things. The radio volume control is also now a physical button. I forget if that was in 2018 or 2019, but so many people complained about it that Honda actually changed it very quickly, relatively, in a car's life cycle. So if you are leasing or looking at a newer version of this, then it will have those buttons on it, but just beware if you're looking at a 2017 and maybe a 2018 that's something you have to consider. Can you live with it on a daily basis? My third thing that I dislike about this car is the way the auto door locks and the keyless entry and keyless starting system works. I love keyless entry and keyless starting. I think it's great. You can just leave the key in your pocket and you can unlock the doors, get in and start the car with the keys in your pocket. So that's super convenient if you have bags in your hands or just not having to dig keys out of your pockets.
Or your purse.
Or your purse. That's really nice. However, there are a few flaws in the system. When we first got it, there's many different settings in the infotainment system to be able to adjust the keyless modes. However, I first tried to get it to unlock all the doors when you unlock the driver's door, and for a while that didn't work, and I had enabled it a couple times in the infotainment and it never seemed to work. That eventually just started working by itself, so that's very inconsistent and just not really a great thing in my eyes for a modern car to be just having erratic decisions of its own when you're specifically trying to choose the features in the settings menu.
Well, it seems like it gives you the power to set the setting, but it doesn't stick.
Right,
is my impression. Is that it gives you some, you know, customizability, right? You can customize it a little bit, but it doesn't seem to remember the settings.
Exactly. The other thing is that it will yell at you randomly, so I think it's supposed to, it has an external beep that's supposed to let you know if you've left the keys in the car, whether it's running or whether it's off. That seems to go off for no reason. I've had it where I have the keys on me and I'll shut the door and it'll still give me this like sharp warning beep letting me know that I left the keys in the car.
Right, perfectly normal use case. Like it happens to me too. You drive this, you get home, you park in the driveway, you have the keys, you close the door, you walk away, and it starts beeping.
Yes, and I did change the settings so it's supposed to auto lock when you walk away from the car, which works.
It does
95% of the time, but every once in a while it'll beep at me and let me know that I've left the keys in the car when I haven't.
Right.
The other thing is it locks it way too fast, so if I get out and I want to fill my car with gas and I'm standing at the gas pump with the keys in my pocket, after I've been standing there for 15 seconds or so, it'll just auto-lock the car, and then I have to unlock the car when I go to get in, and I haven't actually left the vicinity of the car. So I thought the auto-lock feature would be dependent on how far away from the vehicle you are, but it just seems to be time-dependent. So there's also been instances where I've like shut the driver's door, and I go to walk around the car to get something out of the passenger door or the rear door, and it is locked by the time I've walked around to the other side of the car. So that to me is very inconvenient and not a completely flawed system, but just something that I think they should work on for future Honda products.
And it's bad enough that it makes you a little paranoid. I know that I'm worried that I make sure that, you know, if I'm jumping out of the car quickly to grab something, I always have the keys on me because I am kind of scared it's going to lock me out or something randomly. I just don't really trust it.
I feel the exact same way. All right, so what are your 3 things that you dislike about this car?
All right, well, I'll start by saying I like to hate on this car a little bit. I admitted that it has grown on me, but there are a few things that do really bug me. First of all, I do not like the height of the center console, I guess. So when you're driving, it feels as though the shifter and everything attached, right, is a little bit too high. So it feels as though your shifting arm, right, is kind of up in the air. And then I tend to always drive around with 1 or more cups of iced coffee, and I end up with the straw poking me in the arm, which is a very first world problem, but it's just almost like the geometry of your arm and the seat and the shifter aren't quite right to the point where it's a little bit uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, and I'm about 9 or 10 inches taller than Laura, so I don't have the problem that she's talking about with the center console being too high, but I do agree if you have a drink with a tall straw or just a tall drink container, that it can be in the way of shifting.
The second thing that I don't like about this car, what's my second? We've had this car for 2 years and I'm still waiting for VTEC to kick in. That's my go-to joke. I'm so sorry. In reality though, I mean, it feels slow to me. It's all just comparison based, right? Compared to the Outback, I don't feel like I have the power that I have in the Outback because I don't. So, you know, in comparison to driving my Outback XT, it's, you know, it feels a little wimpy. It does still handle great, but it feels a little wimpy.
Yeah, this car, it makes, like I said, 200-ish, 205 horsepower, something like that. Her Outback makes around 250. This car is lighter. It's about 2,800 pounds, and I think the Outback is maybe 3,400 pounds or something like that. It's like the fully loaded model with all the heated seats and power seats and sound deadening and all that stuff. Yeah. So
the third thing I don't like is probably just something where I need to get with the times, but it's the electric parking brake. I feel like just out of habit when I'm driving a manual car, as I do, when you release the parking brake, you don't have to have your foot on the brake, right? Normally you do in this car. If you try to release the parking brake and you're not actively holding the brake pedal down, it will kind of, I don't know if it beeps at you or just kind of flashes a warning that's like, no, you might roll away, you know, it's very concerned. So I don't love that just because out of habit, like when I'm driving other cars with a manual parking brake. I don't know what to call it,
yeah,
right?
Manual
Sure.
parking brake. Non-electronic parking brake.
Right, exactly. One that's not trying to babysit me. You can just kind of roll a little bit, and you don't have to have your foot on the brake. So it's just sort of, breaking my own habit. But it does make it a little bit annoying to drive, because it's something I do unknowingly. And I go, oh, right, that's right, I got to hold the brake. But also, I don't daily drive this car. I drive it probably
a couple times a month.
There's been times when my car is in the shop, I'll drive this because I don't like driving a truck. That's a whole different story. It's probably something I get more used to if I drive it several days in a row.
It was also something that I had to get used to as well. I had never used a car with an electronic parking brake before. Once you do get used to it, it is something that it's integrated for me, and I don't really worry about it. I do have to say, sometimes it can be inconsistent. Either I'll have my foot on the brake, or maybe I've pulled the lever or pushed the lever faster right after I put my foot on the brake, or maybe you need your foot on the brake a certain percentage of the pedal travel, because sometimes I will have my foot on the brake and it'll yell at me saying, put your foot on the brake before you disengage the parking brake, which it could just be one of those things where I'm doing it too fast. But
well, it's something that in other cars you're used to being able to manually control, right? Like you can either hold the brake a little, hold the brake a lot, but either way the car will let you release the brake. In this car, unfortunately, will yell at you if you attempt to do that.
So there's our top things that we like and dislike about it. So in summary, I would say this is a great car. It's a great daily driver. It's something that someone who wants a sporty car can get in and drive daily. You can drive it almost 10/10ths a lot and not really be in trouble. A lot of cars these days are so powerful. If you want to do a second, third, fourth gear pull, you're breaking the speed limit so fast, and it can be very dangerous and dangerous to your driver's license. In this case, you really can ham it around corners, and while yes, you're going to break the speed limit if you do that a lot, it's not as dangerous as some of the faster cars. So you can really push this car to the limit and not really worry about endangering yourself or others. That being said, I don't think I'm going to buy this at the end of the lease. That's a whole different ball game of whether that's a good choice monetarily or not, and I think that will boil down to every person's specific scenario.
Well, and my 2 cents on that is cars are not normally investments, so I think that our view on that is that we see cars as something to enjoy while we own. So for us, it's just the money versus the enjoyment, like Adam mentioned earlier.
So I think at this point, at the end of my lease, I have the option of buying it out for $14,000 or somewhere in that ballpark, and I'll have put $9,000 into it. So realistically, I'm not spending any more money than I would have had I just outright bought it at the beginning. But for me personally, I don't think I'm going to lease or own another front-wheel drive car, at least not a modern one, maybe like an old Honda, like a classic Honda or something like that.
Well, this car has worked for us, but we don't love it.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a perfectly good car. If people have asked me, do you like the Civic? When they're car shopping, I say, yeah, it's a perfectly good car. Is it the car I want to keep forever and to buy and to drive till it's dead? No.
Right, and there's definitely things that you could do to improve on the things that we were complaining about, like just a plug-in tuning controller like Honda or one of the others that's available. You can get maybe 30, 40, 50 horsepower right off the bat just by plugging it in and changing it tune. I had a friend who has a 2017 SI Coupe who did that and loved it, said it was way faster, way more responsive. You can also adjust things like the traction control with one of those, so that might wipe out the car being slow and the traction control issues that we discussed. But that's another $500, $600, $700 investment that you'd have to put in.
Right, and that's part of our motivation for leasing this car, was we wanted something that we could and would keep absolutely stock, and we have. Adam bought tires for it, but that's it. We've modified our other vehicles, and this car was kind of our safety net car.
Exactly, right? Something that we could go out, start every day, not have to worry about it, and it has the warranty in case something does go wrong.
Right, and it's not 10 plus years old like our Subarus.
Exactly. So overall, great car, great daily driver, perfect for our scenario that we leased it for, but ultimately if I was to go back in time, I would probably do something else. I would either spend a little more money and get like a WRX, or if I wanted like a nicer front-wheel drive car, maybe look at a Volkswagen GTI. The BRZ would also be top of my list. If this car was all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive with the same amount of power and the same amenities, I would probably like it a lot more. There's not too many cars out there. We were talking about the BMW 230, which is available with a 4-cylinder turbo and rear-wheel drive, but they're very rare in a manual. So
yeah, and that's something that was important to us, was to have a manual car.
yes, definitely.
Speaking of manual though, this is sort of a side note. I think it would be easy for someone to learn to drive stick on this car.
I agree completely. It's the light clutch and the power range being a lot lower than some of the older versions.
And like you mentioned, the shifter is very easy. You always know what gear you're in. There's no ambiguity as to where you're shifting.
So I agree. This would be a good car for someone to learn manual on if they were either not very familiar or a complete beginner.
Right. Save the manuals.
Save the manuals, absolutely. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. I still secretly hate it and secretly love it. Well, I guess not so secretly hate and secretly love at the same time. Waiting for that VTEC to kick in.
Yep, still waiting. All right, see you guys later. Thanks.
Bye.